everybody, welcome to iHome Church. My name is In Jin Moon, and for those of you joining us for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to our email list. Today is an exciting day because we are celebrating the 4th of July weekend, or Independence Day as we call it. I'm sure you enjoyed the fireworks on the 4th of July, and I know that my kids were terribly excited about spending this day with the family, with my husband being the grill master, manning the barbecue, and having a wonderful, wonderful time with family and friends. I know that it's one of my kids' favorite holidays, and I'm sure it is the same for you. But I think for a lot of young kids in particular, you know, they are just so mesmerized by the word independence. You know, for them, independence means freedom from all restrictions, and it's revolution of some sort. And I think when groups of kids, you know, they get together, and I've overheard some conversations take place. You know, they often talk about how I just cannot wait for my Independence Day when I leave home and do whatever I want, you know, and have my freedom. And I will be able to be the master of my own universe and make my own decisions, and so on and so forth. And lots of young people look forward to that day when they can rid themselves away from the family and from the parents and from anything that seems to restrict them from what they want to do. But the interesting thing about the word independence is that when you look at it, you know, the word independence is kind of made up of two words. Independence. It kind of signifies or alludes to the fact that in order to really be truly an independent person, you kind of have to go through a period where you are independence of somebody. It could be a mentor, it could be a parent, and by kind of going through this process, or even if you were suffering through the process, it will inevitably help you to become a better person, hopefully turning you into a responsible, independent person at the end of the day. And, you know, when I thought about this, you know, and I have children of my own, and each and every one of them are going through their own journey through life, and everybody matures in a different fashion. And as a parent, it's extremely interesting to watch the whole process and to be immersed in it and to be a part of it. And so when my father, the Reverend Myung Moon, teaches that the family is really the textbook of love, that's where you rub up against each other and grow in wisdom and grow in depth as a person with a parental heart. I mean, he definitely knows what he's talking about, because I've certainly been in that situation many, many times. But I know that when my father talks about a revolution of sorts, he's talking about something quite different from maybe what a group of teenagers might be talking when they're at a slumber party at somebody's house. My father gave an incredible speech where he talked about God's hope for man on October 20th, 1973. And what he talked about was a quiet revolution. And I want to read that passage for you. He said, "I can see a great change, a great new surge of revolution coming to America. Not by fire, not by bullets, but by God's truth kindling a revolution of man's hearts. I have come here to ignite this spiritual revolution. I don't need to demonstrate in front of the White House or in Lafayette Square. The answer does not lie there, but in the hearts of men. In the quiet revolution from selfishness to unselfishness. Can you imagine how wonderful the ideal society will be? Individuals will belong to their families. The family will belong to the society. The society will belong to the nation. The nation will belong to the world. The world will belong to God, and God will belong to you. He who gives the most will know God most deeply. Some young people may say to me, Reverend Moon, you are coming here repeating the same old stuff. But that is not true at all. I am speaking not from theory, but from life. I am telling you that we are all here to live the truth. It is the ultimate truth of God, not to be talked about, but to be lived. So this quiet revolution that my father talks about, from selfishness to unselfishness, is something that needs to be lived, something that needs to be experienced by all of us. It's not something that we should just preach or we should just share, or we should just talk about, but we really need to do the hard work of living it, of substantiating it in our lives. And so when I ruminate or meditate or reflect on how to live an unselfish life, there are a couple things that come to mind, and I'm hoping that these steps, or 3 steps as I call it, could help you as well. One of the things that I learned in my life journey is that in order to live a life of unselfishness, number 1, it's incredibly important to be aware or be mindful or be sensitive to the needs of others. Many times when we are selfish, we are so consumed about our own needs, the arrow always pointing to what we want out of life, that we become totally insensitive to what the other needs in their life. And so the single most important thing is to see the world not just from our own eyes, but from a kind of like a bird's eye perspective. Be aware of what's going on. You know, before we erupt in an emotional outburst, think about what we are doing. Is this conducive to making our relationship with our children better? Is this conducive to making our relationship with our spouse any deeper? Or is it something that's destructive? And if so, how else can I deal with what I'm feeling? Being aware or being mindful, being watchful of our actions, of our thoughts, can be incredibly helpful in living an unselfish life. You know, one of the things that I learned through some of my colleagues when I was at divinity school was, you know, everybody there had some kind of a testimony or some kind of a story as to how they found themselves in the divinity school. And there was this one person who decided to become a monk for 3 years of his life. And he talked about living in a monastery. And one of the things I asked him was, well, tell me about your experience. What was the most profound thing that you learned after the first year? Because I'm thinking the first year with such a dramatic change from a modern world to a monastery is must be quite shocking. And I wanted to hear what he had to say. And he said something that was very, very interesting to me, and again reinforced the importance of the awareness or being mindful in our daily lives. He said, you know, the single most important thing that I learned in my 1-year journey, my first year at the monastery, is that I became so aware of opening and shutting doors. And so I said, okay, can you explain that a little bit? And he went on to explain that, you know, sometimes you find the universal wisdom in the things that we take for granted. In the simple gesture of learning to open and shut doors with a sense of awareness, with a sense of mindfulness, I was able to changed different areas of my life and my perspective on the things that I took for granted or the things that I needed to revisit. The simple gesture of opening a door or shutting a door is not just the manual labor of taking a door and opening and shutting it. Metaphorically, it can mean a whole different things in that many times when we walk through our journey through life, it's about making the right kind of decisions. What door do we decide to open? Or what door do we decide to shut behind us? Or what door do we open that we want to enter? And what room have we entered that maybe we want to leave and shut the door behind? By kind of concentrating and reflecting on these simple gestures, these simple decisions that we take for granted, and kind of metaphorically understanding it in the larger context of our lives. If we were to ask ourselves, well, if we open this door to our life, what does that mean? Or if we close this door on our life, what does that mean? And being mindful and being aware of the decision process has helped this person greatly in his life of faith. And so every time that I think about what I need to do, sometimes the modern day catches up with you and things get so convoluted and you want to kind of settle down, you want to kind of take a prayerful approach to life, and you want to start your day, living your day unselfishly. Well, number one, being aware, being mindful. Remembering this example of this colleague of mine has been incredibly helpful in my life of faith. And the next thing that I think is extremely important is the ability to let go of attachments. When we are selfish, we cannot do without our possessions. It could be material possessions. It could be emotional possessions. It could even be spiritual possessions. We cling on to these things that we think that we need all the time. And we are so dependent on it, almost like a drug addict, stuck onto his drugs. We don't know how to operate or how to go through life without these attachments. And when we become consumed with our possessions or with our need to have all these attachments, we can easily fall into the role of being an obsessed person. It's like when we start possessing things, these things end up possessing us. And it's just never enough. We need more and more and more. And before we know it, we realize that we have become obsessed with this particular attachment. And for a lot of people with addictive disorders, it could be drugs, it could be sex, it could even be a spiritual need for something. And that's the all-consuming monster. And they totally disregard their families, their loved ones, their responsibilities, and the only thing that consumes them, or us at times, is our obsession. And so when we realize that we want to live an unselfish life, being aware and mindful of and being sensitive to other people, we have to be willing to let go, or as the Greek word kenosis means emptying out. We have to be willing to empty out all of these baggages, if you will, if we really want to live an unselfish life. Because many times, all these baggages or attachments, it's really about us. It's what we need. It's, thinking that, oh my goodness, somebody has stolen this possession that belongs to me. And we are all consumed by that. And I am a perfect example. When I grew up, until I was maybe 13, 14. I lived together with my younger sister. And, as younger sisters are, they like to borrow their older sister's stuff. And some of my stuff was near and dear to my heart. They were like my most prized possessions. And sometimes when my mother would buy me something, like a really, really nice purse or a really, really nice dress, I would just keep it for that special occasion. But then sometimes my purse or my dress would just disappear out of my closet. And I know which closet it has gone to. But, if I just concentrated on what no longer existed in my closet, I could turn into a volcanic monster. I was so consumed by anger. Why can't you ask me? Just ask me. Why do you have to take it? And, this possession, my worldly possession, became my obsession. And I realized I was just out of control emotionally. It was not good for my sister. It was not good for me. It was not good for our relationship. In fact, it was just awful. And the ill will and the ill feeling that manifested itself or exploded itself onto my life because I was so attached to my dress or to my purse was just not healthy for anybody. And I remember once during fishing season, Father said, how are you doing? You just finished school, now you're fishing with Father, how do you feel? And I said, oh my goodness, I feel so awesome on the ocean. And my father said, why is that? And I said, well, sometimes my sister just takes things and it just really makes me upset. And, she doesn't ask and I don't know how to deal with it. And I'm just terribly upset, but I don't like me when I become this person when I'm upset. And my father said to me, In Jin, what is it that your sister took? And so I said, my dress that I have been saving for. And my father just kind of looked at me and said, is that dress that important? You can get a new dress. And I said, Father, you don't understand. It is the dress. It is my dress. And Father said, yeah, but is it that important? You can get another dress. Just let it go. Maybe your sister needs it more than you. I said, Father, nobody needs that dress more than me. I need that dress. But now it's gone. But Father said, why don't you just let your sister have it if she really needs it? And if you can be happy for her, maybe you'll get a better dress. And, it took some convincing. And I begrudgingly said, well, okay, and just, let my sister have it and didn't really say anything. But I still felt bad. But having let go of my attachment made my life a whole lot better. I wasn't so self-absorbed about my dress. If she needs it, let her have it. Let it go. It's just a dress. But my relationship with my sister is more important at the end of the day than a dress. So being able to let go of attachments is incredibly important in trying to live or trying your best at living an unselfish life. And the third most important lesson that I've learned in my life journey is to keep things simple. I know that many, many parents have written emails to me asking for advice. I have this particular situation with my child, what can I do to help better the relationship? Or I'm at wit's end, I just don't know what to do. I want to send my child to military school and have the military school beat it out of them because I just don't know what to do. And many parents have. But you know, one thing that that can really alleviate lots of frustration and anger, I think, for a parent is just reminding themselves, keep it simple. Meaning, what is the most important thing in life after all? You know, it's the relationship that we have with our child. It's the love that we can share, no matter how difficult it is. So there is this example of this one particular parent who, you know, after years and years of just having great deal of difficulty, found themselves having to pick up their daughter 4 o'clock in the morning in the middle of nowhere at a designated spot. And the daughter said, be there, I'm going to show up 4 o'clock in the morning. The parents were there waiting, even though they were terribly upset. And then the child finally comes to the designated area after 4 hours. So it's 8 o'clock in the morning. The parents have been calling the cell phone of this girl for hours with her never answering. And she walked towards the car 4 hours later. And the parent is faced with a dilemma. The parent wants to scream the head off at their daughter, but at the same time, you know, trying to live an unselfish life, trying to live a life that's aware, that's mindful, letting go of attachment. The parent really has to ask themselves, whose need am I serving at this point if I decide to volcanically erupt on my daughter? Another way to think about it is, thank God she showed up at all. Thank God she's alive. Instead of just trashing her and just letting her have it the minute you see your daughter approaching the car. You could say, thank God you are alive. So that initial interaction is incredibly important in creating a bond of trust, a bond of affinity, a basis or a platform on which the parent can build later on with more and more conversations. They can talk about why what she did was not right, why it's not fair. What if she were waiting for the parents and the parents arrived 4 hours later? How would she feel? Hypothetically, put her in the same situation as the parent. But this can all be done later. And you have your whole lifetime to discuss what she did. But that initial interaction of a parent trying their best to live an unselfish life without attachment, a life that's aware and mindful, might just catch themselves wanting to volcanically erupt and say, thank God you're alive. Get in the car, let's go home. Because at the end of the day, the most important thing is that our child is safe. Our child is in our care. And now we have a chance to love this child, to inspire this child, to empower the child, to empower her enough to want to connect to the world in the most healthy and in the most excellent of ways. So the important thing about, wanting to live a life of unselfishness, and the reason why my father calls it a quiet revolution, is that the parents are not out there, with the fireworks saying, yippee, I'm going to save my child. It's that quiet determination to be aware, to be mindful, to let go of attachments, to keep things simple. It starts from within. Father always said to me that the most powerful revolution starts from a very, very quiet place. It starts from a prayer, starts from our dialogue with God. It starts from our thoughts, and later it's translated into actions. But it comes from a quiet place. It comes from a decision to live an unselfish life. And instead of being self-consumed by what we need, when we ask ourselves whose need is being served at that moment. Well, if the parent volcanically erupts, well, it certainly serves the parent's need of wanting to vent, but it does not serve the need of the child that needs guidance, direction, and support and love from a parent. So by asking these simple questions, we can take what seems like a major crisis or the sky falling down into very, very simple scenarios where it doesn't become such a big deal after all. And in that way, we can keep our dignity intact. We can keep the consistent level of love and support that our family needs in sometimes some of the most difficult situations, and get through it in a loving and in an inspiring and in an empowering way. So when true parents say that they come to ignite a quiet revolution in the hearts of men, what they're basically saying is, hey, true parents are here as the first victorious Adam and Eve in all of providential history. And they become our personal role models. Just like the way if we want to have a fabulous body and we want to have a great workout, the best way to get the most out of your workout is if you have a personal trainer. Well, God gave us the best personal trainer that we could ever hope for. God gave us true parents. They are our role models in helping us transition from a selfish life or a self-absorbed life into an unselfish life, teaching us, showing us how to be mindful, aware, how to let go of attachments that seem so burdensome, how to keep things simple, live our life with simple elegance. So having our true parents as our role model is an incredible blessing. And they are not just only role models as great men and women, but as a parent, truly representing God's parental heart. So through them, we can learn how to develop a parental heart of our own and build beautiful families, or ideal families, as we call it. And I always caution brothers and sisters, when we say the word ideal doesn't mean you have no problems. Ideal doesn't mean you have no mess. Ideal means that we're going to be dealing with a whole lot of issues and problems. But we respond to it unselfishly, with awareness, with a mindfulness, without holding on to these attachments. In fact, emptying of these attachments. And by keeping things simple so that we can respond to these problems in the best of ways and grow a family that we are truly, truly excited about. So the whole point about the message of true parents is they are our role models so that we can substantiate, we can build that ideal family. So many times in a religious life, we can easily become addicted to church. We can easily become addicted to certain ways of doing things, certain ways of thinking about things. And many times we don't realize that they end up being the greatest obstacles to our progress. So one of the books that I like to read from time to time is the book of Ephesians from the Bible. And the central message talks about leaving behind the alienation and hostility of the world and really concentrating on the vision of reconciliation, peace, and unity. And this book was not written, or this letter was not written for a particular congregation, but it's kind of like a general message to all in Christendom. And it's a beautiful passage. It reads, "Let all bitterness, wrath, anger, clamor, evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. And be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, as God in Christ forgave you." To me, this has an incredibly powerful message, because all of these things that it lists to put away from you are many times what we hold on to because we are selfish. We are self-absorbed. We are angry. We are resentful. We have a whole lot of anger. We want to speak ill of others. We want to blame others for our problems. And all of these things tend to be attachments. And in the end of the day, it's not good for you. It's not good for me. It's not really good for anybody. And the only thing that it ends up doing is just weighing us down from really accomplishing the kind of things that we need to accomplish. So living a life of a selfishness is to let go of all of these resentment and all of these burdens. And in a way, allowing each other to start on a new slate, build a new relationship that is forward-thinking, that is inspiring, that is empowering, that connects us to the world, that really helps us be better people. And that's what family is all about. So if God is asking us to be one family under God, well, then we have to do exactly that. We have to do what uplifts one another. We have to be busy trying to uplift each other better than the other one lifting us up. And in that way, really, appreciate the life that has been placed in our care. And when I think about our church community at large, that is exactly the message that I feel is incredibly important at this time. In that, there's so much room to, complain about a whole different things. But the most important thing is to love each other at the end of the day. And our true parents, as our role model, as a personal trainer, are showing us the way. And so let's unite as one family. And let's do our best to uplift and work with each other to really substantiate the work that needs to be done right now, each and every day. And, one of my favorite things that I like to do, starting my day out in the morning, is to have a really nice cup of coffee in my favorite cup. And the cup says, "God gave us music so that we may pray without words." And in the back of the cup, it says, "Bach gave us God's words. Mozart gave us God's laughter. Beethoven gave us God's fire." And I always say to myself, true parents gave us God's love. So share God's love with the rest of the world. And be proud of who you are. And be proud of your and our true parents. And if we do that and really work at building incredible families, then the work of kingdom building starts within our hands. So God bless you. Have a wonderful week.
Your own personal Jesus, someone to hear your prayers, someone who's there. Your own personal Jesus, someone to hear your prayers, someone who's there. Feeling unknown and you're all alone, flesh and bone, bone by the telephone. Pick up the receiver, I'll make you a believer. Don't take second best, put me to the test. Things on your chest, you like to confess. Oh, I will deliver, you know I'm unforgivable. Reach out and touch face. Reach out and touch faith. Your own personal Jesus. Someone to hear your prayers, someone who's there. Your own personal Jesus. Someone to hear your prayers, someone who's there. Feeling unknown and you're all alone. Flesh and bone by the telephone. Pick up the receiver, I'll make you a believer. Oh, I will deliver, you know I'm unforgivable. Oh, reach out and touch face. Oh, reach out and touch faith. Your own personal Jesus. Someone to hear your prayers, someone who's there. Your own personal Jesus. Someone to hear your prayers, someone who's there. Reach out and touch faith. Reach out and touch faith.
If you have any questions and comments, please leave them below this video or go to injinmoon.com and use the contact form. And don't forget to sign up to our email list. Bye-bye.